so I'm a rebel and rogue, and I'm always on the run. With a fire inside, I ain't ever gonna die. I'm a locked and loaded gun. When the matches strike and the gasoline lights, it's only just begun. One thing I learned is you could watch it all burn, but the flame ain't ever done. Raise 'em up a little higher, your lighters, outlaws and outsiders.
Some call me a renegade, the enemy. Throw your hands up if you feel the same. Oh, living life at the edge. Just say what you wanna say, or walk away. I stand tall when there's hell to pay. Ain't no power higher. We're the outlaws and outsiders. I was born in the dark with a fearless heart and a taste for the other
Here
side.
we go with another show. Welcome everybody once again to The Current View on DAMC TV, your independent source for trucking news. I am your host, Chris Bikerson. So many developments to talk about in just the last few days here as we continue moving on through America under siege. Let's talk about Easter, the Easter Day ambush. In a lot of places, Kentucky and Mississippi were two of the big ones. I know there were several others. I don't have the full list, but we saw law enforcement come in, and I'm sure you've probably heard about it. You know, Kentucky, they had the warning signs that they put out there, letting people know that if they attended Easter services at the church of their choosing, that the state police would be there recording their license plate numbers, identifying the owners, and that the health department will be in contact with those people, ordering them to 14-day quarantine, which would be enforced by the police. We saw other incidents of police showing up and breaking up church services, one of which was actually a drive-in service. People were not actually inside the church, sitting close to each other, violating social distancing. It was from what I understand, with a loudspeaker outdoors and people sat in their cars. And apparently that was dangerous. Yeah. Bad stuff. Pastors being arrested. Don't quote me on this. I believe it was in Alabama, possibly, or maybe Florida. Somewhere in one of the southern states. You know, you actually saw a pastor get arrested for holding a church service that was prior to Easter. You know, it's kind of funny. In a lot of these states, you've got cannabis shops being declared essential because it's, you know, medical marijuana. That's what's a medical need. You got liquor stores being declared essential. People can mass up and get in lines at Home Depot and Walmart and everywhere else, but buddy, they're going to show up in force if you dare to try to go to a church service. Never really imagined that I'd see the day in America where people would be getting ticketed, arrested, and broken up and sent home as if they were at some sort of illegal protest for going to a church service. Pathetic. Over in Michigan, you know, you've got the governor there going a little bit too far, overreaching. In her executive order, she prohibited things like going out on the boat, fishing, no going to your second home. Travel, if you owned a second home, a lot of people in Michigan, you know, there's a lot of lakes in Michigan. If you own essentially a vacation home, a second home in Michigan somewhere, she made it illegal to travel to your second home. Even made it illegal to go across the street and talk to your neighbors. Yeah. Can't talk to those neighbors. And even shut down like garden supply centers. You can't get seeds to plant your own food, which is funny. You know, I would think in this time when the supply chain is in question and has been stressed, and we don't want people getting close to each other socially, I kind of thought maybe people being able to grow their own gardens would help as we went into the summer season with keeping people spread apart. But who am I? I'm just some dumb hillbilly trucker, if you ask people. And people are starting to push back. People are starting to push back. That's something that I'm very happy to see. Of course, you saw the big one out in Michigan in response to these completely overstepping orders. Over 100,000 people showed up in the capital of Michigan, Lansing, in their cars. Most of them did stay in their cars in order to protest the governor's extension and additional lockdown orders. They finally hit their breaking point. They've had it. They're done. They want Michigan open for business. Obviously, not the entire state of Michigan is Detroit, which is something we're seeing. People who tend to dwell in the big cities, your big city, these governors from the big cities, they try to act like the entire state is that city. And I'm sorry, if you're in an area where your population density is 10 people per square mile, you're just not running the same risk as someone living in tenements in downtown Detroit or Manhattan, or Newark, New Jersey. It's just not the same thing. You can't treat everything the same. I find urban dwellers in particular to have a real problem conceiving the idea that not everywhere is like living in the city. But one that didn't get talked about so much, also yesterday, this will be April 15th, the same day as the Detroit rally. Excuse me, not Detroit, Lansing, Michigan. There was also in Frankfort, Kentucky, another rally, and then this one didn't get as much press coverage. It was much smaller. There was only about 300 people in attendance. Although they did not stick to their cars. They actually got out on foot. They went up to the state capitol building. Now, the governor there, Andy Beshear, has been giving daily press conferences at 5 o'clock. So they all kind of showed up by surprise at 4:30. And when his press conference started at 5, they actually went to his window, walked right up to the window, and started their chants about him being non-essential, about facts over fear. I can't remember all the different clever chants I heard, but, Kentucky needs to be open for business, things of that nature. Good old freedom-loving Americans with this crazy idea that we need to be free again, and that we need to not shut down and lock down all of our citizens because of this virus that at last estimate, now that they're taking a look at more numbers, seems to have a mortality rate of somewhere around 0.2%. Yeah, it really is like that. There's more to come. We've got upcoming rallies in Kansas next week, I believe the 24th, if I'm not mistaken. I believe Pennsylvania has one coming up this Monday. And there's a big one that's out there. It's floating around. It's called, it's got a couple of names, the May Day Rebellion and the May Day Mutiny. This one is calling for massive, wide-scale protest at every state capital in America. All 50 capitals. And I don't think that one's going to go so well. The theme of that one is "We are revoking your right to govern." It seems that those protesters are actually out to demand the immediate removal of their said governors. Obviously, these governors have seemingly lost their heads lately. I'm not sure at what point each state was able to make its governor its own dictator. I'm really confused and mystified by all this massive amounts of power that the governors of these states suddenly seem to be convinced that they have. That I really can't find the authority for them, but before you call me a dumb hillbilly that don't know nothing because I drive a truck for a living, I'm not the only one thinking that way. Lots of law firms are questioning this power that seems to come from nowhere as well. A lot of people talk about, the suspension clause of the Constitution. Well, the suspension clause of the Constitution only suspends the writ of habeas corpus during times of invasion or rebellion. Doesn't say anything about viruses. So, again, where these governors get the idea that they can become some sort of supreme dictator